All righty. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the lunch hour. As some of you might know, I'm Sarah-Mae Thomas, a lawyer who is also a podcaster, avid podcaster, and I started the lunch hour really as a brainchild between a webinar series. Oh, it's going live. And I'm hearing my voice twice, so all good. And it was really because I practice family law. I do a lot of divorces. I do some other areas of law where it really intersects with, do we buy a property now? Is this the right time to get into the property market? So that's when I thought, okay, maybe I should speak to some property experts. And then people started asking me, well, how do I navigate my emotions through difficult times? And then I thought, okay, let's speak to counselors. Let's speak to financial planners. So it's really like a cross-disciplinary type webinar where I interview experts on a specific area. And today we have none other than Dee Kanduja. Hi, Dee. Welcome.
Hey, hi, Sarah-Mae. How are you?
Good, thank you. So just a brief introduction on Dee. Dee, the one and only Dee, is the founder of the Butterfly Letters, a socially conscious company that publishes stories through letters sent via traditional post. She's also a certified futurist and long-term analyst. And I've just realized there's a trademark to the long-term analyst. So Dee, you can tell us a little bit about that in a minute. Now, Dee has 20 years of experience working in the recruitment sector in both Europe and Asia. Dee has owned her own employment agency for 14 years, partnering with over 450 corporate clients, and she's personally coached over 10,000 candidates. Wow, Dee, that's a lot of people to empower and to coach. It's amazing. Dee has worked with startup projects with the education, e-learning, and e-commerce space. She's also the co-founder of Futurist, a legal tech startup project. As a best-selling author, a qualified copywriter, she writes for the American Association and Expat Living magazine. She's also a certified trainer. She consults with individuals and corporates. Dee manages an active community of female entrepreneurs. I love that, Dee. She loves writing, theater, and is a busy mom of 2 kids and a dog called Jet. So get your questions ready because you will have an opportunity to ask questions of Dee. And if you weren't able to tune in live, this is actually going to be recorded and posted onto the Legal Eagle podcast YouTube page. I'll send you an email with the link and I'll post it on my socials. So please watch the playback if you want to catch this episode. So Dee,
yes,
welcome.
And you.
Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think you've just captured most of it, but perhaps I'll hone in on the recruitment background because I think that's what I'm here to really talk about and to hopefully help people who might be looking for a job or looking to pivot or something career related. So I actually have 20 years experience in recruitment, and 14 years of those was as a founder and operator of my own employment agency. So in here and Singapore and Hong Kong. And so I come from a slightly different angle to most career coaches because I often wear my headhunter hat when helping people look for a job or give them advice on how they can position themselves for a job to elevate themselves from the noise, right? So I suppose that part of my background is the meaty part of my background. I've always got different projects going on, but that's the bulk of my experience. So I hope that I can add value to people today based on their career. I also, for those who are looking to pivot or are stuck in their careers or hate their jobs or anything like that, which can happen at any point in our lives, right? I myself exited my recruitment agency and pivoted myself. So the work I'm doing now with the Butterfly Letters is very much tapping on the writer in me. And so, whatever advice I'm giving, I have lived through it myself. And so hopefully we can help people, especially if they're stuck in their career.
Absolutely. And I think it's so powerful because I myself have walked through 2 periods of unemployment in my adulthood. And we live in a society where it's so important to have this image of being successful, but the reality is people do go through career breaks.
Yes.
They do go through seasons of unemployment and discouragement. And so I guess that, there is a level of empathy when I speak to people who have gone through it, because I've walked that journey. And so it's really, I think today, if there's one take home, I want people to hear our stories and how we've come through, whether it's a pivot in your career, whether it's walking out of a season of unemployment, how we dealt with it. So that's really going to be an organic conversation today.
Sure.
So I thought a good starting point would actually be talking about COVID-19 and how this has been an immensely challenging time for people. People are looking for jobs. People are thinking of switching because they're working from home and they don't really have the normal structures that a workplace would have. And so they're questioning. There's more time to question and to reinvent and to reconsider, taking stock of their lives and their careers. So how does one realistically approach a job search, or perhaps consider a new job in these strange times that we find ourselves in?
Very, very good question. Thank you for this question. Okay, so I would say there's a few different elements and few moving parts to this question. Okay, so in terms of how do you do the job search, how's the best way? How's the best way to do a job search, for example, in today's day and age? The answer to that, I'll park on the side of there are some very good practical tips that one can do if you're searching for a job right now, today, and you know what you want, you know what your skill sets are, and you want to go for that job and find a new position. So there's practical toolkit that you could use. So I'll just park that side. The other side of this question is, this notion of COVID-19 and people rethinking, people reflecting, and also noticing that things are changing so fast in the jobs landscape with skills that seem to be, I don't want to say dying off, because I don't think we're there yet, but I do think we are moving towards a job market where certain jobs are hot and other jobs are not. And so to find where you are placed in a conveyor, that a moving timeline that is moving very fast, that is requiring different skills of us, to figure out what skills do we have that can add value, not just today, but later down the line, we need to take a step back. Okay, we need to take a step back and I think we need to reflect on not just our gifts, our personal gifts, skills, passions, all those things I call gifts, but also the macro level narrative coming from the government, the macro level, the data that's coming from different sources to suggest where we're moving, where the economy is moving. And then it's a case of I call it meshing your gifts in a way that can add value in the new narrative. Okay, so when you take a step back and do this deep reflection work to see, what I've got, am I relevant? Am I relevant today? Am I still going to be relevant with the way the world is moving? And those are questions to ask of oneself. So for me, I know I've answered it a little bit here and there, but there's the practical toolkits. You can do this is the job search strategy, how to get any job. Fine, there's that answer. But then I do think that all of us need to step back and ask of ourselves, what are we doing to make sure we are relevant and future proofing, because the market is changing.
Yes. Wow, I love that. Because you go to any number of recruiters and they'll tell you, okay, make sure you spruce up your CV, make sure you do these steps. But I think you're the first person who's actually said, what's the narrative in the government? Like, where is the money being pumped into, and how does that fit in with your skill set?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because, it's, what we don't want, I'm assuming people don't want, is to go into a job and, that doesn't have a lot of longevity or as much growth or opportunity, for example. There are clear indications and data reports, which I'm going to share with you guys, of sectors, skills that are in demand, growing in demand. And so it's worth knowing what those are so you can decide for yourself whether these are areas that interest you, whether you need to upskill. And I don't think whether you need to upskill is actually negotiable. We do need to upskill. We do. We have to. And if we can get that in our mindset that we want to stay at the sharp end of our skill set and always be looking to upskill and reskill, we are then doing the work to make ourselves relevant and future-proof. And if we don't do it, we have to consider what if we don't do it. Well, if we don't do it, we run the danger of being left behind, or we run the danger of, you presenting your CV against someone who has done the upskilling and reskilling. And how are you going to compete with that person? And so that's why I feel that we really are at a point in time where we've got to look at deeper questions rather than just doing a job search, seeing jobs on LinkedIn and firing your CV down a black hole and never hearing back, because that strategy doesn't work, right? So and we can talk about why it doesn't work as well. But I hope I can get the listeners to understand that it would pay dividends to do some deep reflection work on how relevant you can make yourself with where we're moving.
Wow. And just while we're on this topic, do you have some hot sectors that the government is tapping into?
Okay. So this is a great question, and it might be a good time for me to just share one link. Okay. And Sarah-Mae, you can also, share it later, but I'm just going to, so the good thing for those of us who are in Singapore is that the government has got a wealth of information that's out there, and they are telling us all the time. Here, right. Okay. I put the link in the chat box.
Yes.
Government in Singapore is very clear on its direction. We hear this whole notion of smart nation. Okay. It's a tagline, and the government has got a lot of information as to what that means and where we're moving. And as we know, Singapore doesn't have agriculture, or doesn't grow anything, doesn't make anything. And this is an intellectual economy. It trades on intellect, right? And so it makes sense for Singapore. We can see why it's moving into and positioning itself as a leader, as a hub in finance, in technology, etc. It's a very startup-friendly hub, for example. So we can see where it's moving, and there's a lot of websites where Singapore is showing us digitally what it's doing, right? But one of the resources is the link I've put, which is the skills future, right? So Singapore's investing a lot into upskilling the workforce, all right? We know this. But I find that not everybody knows about the skills framework, and this is worth studying because the skills framework it's got 34 sectors that the Singapore government has, I suppose, highlighted or has presented. And in these 34 sectors, different industries, it really breaks down the types of jobs in those industries, the career pathway, if you want to enter this industry from the bottom or from the middle to what, so you can visualize the pathway. And it goes as far as to tell you what the skills are that are required, and also what courses you need to take to plug your skills gap. Okay, so it's a lot of information. The government put it together with companies, with employers, with associations. And so they had a whole heap of parties to put this together. What I find interesting is, if you went to LinkedIn and did a search for A to Z industries, okay, you get a heap of lists, like loads of industries that are available, right? But I find it interesting that the Singapore government is focusing on 34. There are way more than 34 industries, but I'm just asking myself, why would they specifically point these 34 out and show us all the job titles that are available in these 34? And if you look at the jobs, you can see this is where the government is clearly telling us that these are the jobs that are of value in a Singapore context, not to say that other jobs are not, and not to say they've got it 100%. There are job titles that are called this in one place and something else. But I think as a starting point, this is going to give us a really good indication of what is the government prioritizing, or what are they saying, you know? And if you can sort of look at these 34 industries and see where you might be positioned or placed, or does a particular one interest you, go into that industry and look at all the jobs that the government is telling you about, then go into those jobs specifically and look at all the skills and attributes that are required for that job, and then go further in and you can see what skills you've got versus what skills you need. And then the government will even tell you the course provider and training provider that will plug the gap. So the government has gone to, and they're constantly adding to this. So this is something that we should keep our eye on. But I do think it's a valuable starting point to, like, for me, if I was looking for a job in Singapore, I would want to know where is the government heading? Where is this market going? How can I make sure I'm valuable to this market? Because that's how I'm going to be competitive.
Wow, that's amazing, Dee. Do you think other governments around the world are doing this? Do you know of, like, the UK?
I keep abreast of the UK because I'm from the UK, and quite honestly speaking, I don't see this level of diligence that the Singapore government, I don't see it. I might be wrong, but from everything I can see, I really feel that the Singapore government is so invested in its workforce and is telling us and is giving us kind of very major clues as to what is valuable and what is not, you know, and and they've got to keep in mind, this is an intellectual society and we need to stay sharp with that. You know, so I think, you know, we can't rely on our degrees that we got 20 years ago. No, you know, we're moving into a phase where, you know, skills I acquired 6 months to 12 months ago may need, you know, up leveling every year. So I think the more we can get into that up leveling mindset, and the better it will be to future proof ourselves. And furthermore, I just want a little caveat that I hope, you know, whose responsibility is it to up level? It is not the government's responsibility to spoon feed us, although the Singapore government has got attractive incentives to help, particularly locals, right? With all the skills future credit and all of this. It does a great job to help and support, but really this task of up leveling is completely down to us to invest in ourselves to stay relevant.
Wow. Amazing. First time I've heard of this. I had no idea that this is, like, I mean, it's not something, do they publish this on LinkedIn?
It is, well, it's published, but I think it's buried, you know, there's so many government sites. It's so much, and I think you would have to be, because I hadn't heard of it either, and you know, I try and stay on top of anything career related, but this I hadn't heard of. It had already been out a few years bore I came across. So I don't know how much it's being publicized. Maybe because I'm not a job seeker, I didn't really know about it. Anyway, I looked at it, I studied it, and I thought, this is good. This is a good resource. But it's also not finite. Okay, so, like, you know, there are jobs and industries that are not on there, and I'm not saying the Singapore government doesn't value those. I guess, I don't know, maybe it's sort of it's almost like a live piece of document that they're constantly iterating,
reworking and adding to. Okay, so that's really helpful, Dee. But if you're in a position where you're looking at Skills Future, you're looking at different jobs, and then people are asking me, what are employers looking for? You know, are there algorithms? Are there, you know, I mean, like, what are they looking for? How do I stand out?
How do I stand out? Okay, all right. So now what we'll do, so if I'm hearing your question correctly, we're going to go into a bit more practical tips now, okay? So more, you know, let's say you're looking for a job today and you've seen the job and you want to apply for the job, okay? So this is a really good question, and this is this very question that I ended up doing a heap of free career clinics, particularly last year, because, as you said, COVID just caused this whole disarray in the job market, right? And so a lot of people were coming with this question that either they've lost their job or they are stuck or they hate their job, but what was different about this time around, when I set up my employment agency in 2007, it was the economical recession, right? So I set up a business that helps people find jobs at a time when people were losing their jobs, and so it was not prime conditions, right? And so I had the same thing. A lot of job seekers coming saying, I've lost my job, but I need to, want to find a new job. This time around with COVID, so I've, what I'm saying is I've worked through a recession, if you like, right? Yes. But this time around, what the difference was, is that not only did we have people that did lose their job, but we also had people who hadn't lost their job, but were anxious that they might lose their job. And so they were also applying. So there seemed to be a lot of competition, if you like, right? And a lot of people came with, how do I make myself stand out? Now, what I've known through my recruitment experience and as a headhunter and the unique perspective I have is because I've owned an employment agency. So job seekers come to the employment agency finds them job options and does the legwork, right? Sends the CV, does the negotiations, does all of that. So the thing is, for a headhunter, we have to be skilled with certain things to be able to find options for our job seekers. And as a headhunter, we're trained to be very good networkers and work with speed. Because if we want, first of all, we have to find jobs fast, otherwise we lose the job seeker. And then we have to do everything as fast as possible so that other agencies don't close the job before we do. So these are some headhunter skills that I suppose I've been trained in for 20 years, right? And so there were things, what I realized is there's things, why are employment agencies even in business, right? It's because, the companies come to employment agencies because we have the network, right? And we have the network. And that's what I said. People think agencies are just sending CVs. They are not. They are networkers first and foremost. Okay. So most of my time would be spent networking to find jobs for my candidates and networking and headhunting to find candidates for jobs. So what I noticed that when job seekers, now I've exited my business, what I see is that, of course, job seekers are not headhunters and job seekers are not always networkers. And so what job seekers do is what they only know what to do, which is, here's a job, I've seen it, send my CV and wait for a response. And so I'd often get this complaint that I've seen, I've applied for 10 jobs and I've had nothing back. I would constantly get this. And then with that, frustration that people are sending CVs and not hearing back, you'd start to eventually, people start to feel, lose confidence, lose confidence. And then this can now start getting into murky waters where you don't feel good enough. And, and with that sort of downward spiral mentally, you're not making, you're not necessarily putting your energy in the right place to do a job search. Okay. So it's it can be a downward spiral quite quickly is my point, right? So what I found is, that method of just seeing a job online, sending a CV and then waiting is a really bad way to find a job, but it's the only way people know. And often you'll see this on LinkedIn, especially for those who use LinkedIn. You'll see, when you look at the LinkedIn jobs, you'll see a job you like, and you'll see some figures like, 200 people have applied for this job. That is so demotivating to go, if I apply for this job, I'm number 201. What chance do I even have? And this is true because I think there's some research out of US that says that on average, one corporate job attracts about 230 applicants, right? Now, whether the figure is right or wrong, the point is, one job with so many applicants, that's noisy. And I can tell you from being on the receiving end of CVs, like whenever I used to post a job on LinkedIn or post a job on a job board, oh my goodness, the amount of CVs that come in, right, from all over the world. And, I'm looking for a tunnel manager or a tunnel engineer, but I'll get CVs from hairdressers. And so, there's a lot of sifting to be done, but companies would pay us to do that sifting, right, to do that dirty work. And so what happens is job seekers fall into this frustration because all they're doing is sending their CV down what I call a black hole, an unmanned email address or a HR at, or they are uploading their CV onto a job board, etc. And then they're part of what we call an ATS system, an applicant tracking system. And these are databases to help the recruiter to sift through CVs fast, right? And that's where the algorithm comes in, right? So I'll park the algorithm for a minute because there's definitely things job seekers can do to make their CV, to make their LinkedIn profile algorithm friendly, and they have to do it. If you're applying for a job online, your CV must be optimized to be algorithm friendly, as must your LinkedIn profile, particularly if you're applying for LinkedIn jobs. So if you're applying for LinkedIn jobs, you need an optimized LinkedIn profile. You must, right? And I'll tell you why in a minute. And if you're applying for any other job on a job board, or you go to a company's website and they want you to upload a CV, it's going to be uploaded into their ATS system, okay? Their applicant tracking system. So your CV has to be optimized for it to be algorithm friendly as well, right? And maybe now's a good time to say what that is, right? So the way it works, let me explain this the easiest way I can. The algorithm's job is to surface the most relevant CVs to the hiring manager to save them time. If I put a job up and I get 200 applicants, I don't want to read 200 CVs. No. So what the algorithm does is it will tell the person who's posted the job, it will tell them, oh, this person is a 10 out of 10 match, or this person is this person has 3 out of 10 of the skills that you want. Or it might use slightly different language. This person is an 80% fit based on the job description. So what I'm trying to say is, whatever the applicant tracking system is, the algorithm is surfacing and showing and highlighting the best fit CVs first to the hiring manager. So if I've had 200 applicants, the algorithm is ranking them and helping me see which ones I should give time of day to first. And of course, for me, if I'm going to hire someone and the algorithm tells me that this person is a 10 out of 10 fit or a 9 out of 10 fit, of course I'm going to call them for an interview before I'm not even going to bother looking at the 8 out of 10 or the 7 out of 10 or the 6 out of 10 people, because I've already got 20 people that are 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. You know what I mean, as an example. So the reason, so the way you make your So if you know that, right, you know that the algorithm is going to help shortlist and filter through the CV for the receiver. So what your job is as a job seeker is to make sure your CV and your LinkedIn profile, if you're applying for jobs on LinkedIn, has keywords in it. That's what the algorithm is looking for. It's scraping your CV and it's scraping if it's on LinkedIn, it's scraping your LinkedIn. It's looking for keywords. All right. Oh, okay. What are the keywords? So this is the next. It
reminds me of search engine optimization.
It is exactly that. It's almost that. So the keywords, right? So the keywords are found in the job description itself. So when you see a job description, and when I coach people, I say, right, you've got a job description, get a highlighter, highlight all the hard skills and the soft skills that you can see. All right. Yeah. And some keywords are very logical. So, you know, if you are in marketing, for example, in marketing, then maybe there are some obvious keywords like digital marketing should appear perhaps on your CV somewhere, or, you know, content campaigns, or, you know, things that are marketing related that kind of you would expect of a marketing talent to have should appear on your CV. And other words, you can find them in the job description itself. All right. So that's where you look for keywords. And the other place you can look for keywords is in LinkedIn itself. When you get the LinkedIn job up, there's a section called skills, and the LinkedIn tells you, oh, you have 3 out of 10 of the skills for this job. And so it's pulling that information from your profile. So what you can do, if you can see what the skills are for a job on LinkedIn, I'm talking specifically LinkedIn here.
Yes.
If you look at those skills that LinkedIn has got for a job, 10 skills, it's always 10. They'll show you 10. You then got to go back to your profile and try and, as long as it's honest and you think you've got as many of those skills, it's got to be put into your LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's where LinkedIn is scraping it from. It's scraping it from there's a section on your profile called skills. You can put 50 skills. You can elect 50 skills. So you can go into your skills and elect those, as long as you've got them all, those 10, or if you've only got 9 or 7, whatever it is, and you've done it, then put it in your profile. Now you can even game this and check it. Now go refresh the screen, go back to the job, and you'll probably have more skills, right? So these are like tiny little tweaks that you can do to optimize. But in reality, like sending your CV for a job online, for a live job that you've seen advertised, is, those jobs that are advertised are the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so there is some research and data, and I'm trying to get the figures correct, but maybe I think it's about that. Okay, so I've seen different versions of these figures, but I've usually seen some people say 70%, some people say 80%, but whichever figure you go with, the premise is that, let's go with 70%. 70% of jobs are not advertised.
Wow.
Not
I did not know that.
Okay? No. And I can definitely, from my own experience in my employment agency, most of the jobs that came to us, they were not advertised. It's companies that are coming to us to get they don't want to put it out in the public, right? Because when you advertise a job, let's go backwards. When a company is hiring, the cheapest and least risky way for them to take somebody on is to take someone on that's known to them within their network. Okay. Or this is why you see employee referral schemes, someone that's known to somebody, someone that's known to someone in the team. Okay. So this is the cheapest and least risky way to hire somebody. So when hiring manager will always try that first, pretty much. Yes. And when you sort of don't have enough leads, you'll start to try other things. And so one of those other things could be working with an agency, because you've got a relationship with the agency. They know what your company culture is like. They know what you want. They've got a deep network, so they can respond quickly. So sometimes they'll go straight, out to the agency. Eventually, whenever they do decide to put it on their website or go to advertise it, it's usually because all the other methods haven't worked. They haven't found someone in their own network. Okay. And so the job that you're seeing, once it's published, everybody sees it. And that's why there's so much competition for those jobs, right? And so when there's so much competition, this means you have to, if you're going to stand out, you have to take some extra steps to stand out than your competition, and then just having an optimized CV and a really sharp LinkedIn. Though those building blocks, CV and LinkedIn, are the bare basics you should have anyway. And many times when people come to me, those basics aren't even in place. So
a lot of people don't have LinkedIn. I mean,
exactly. And to be fair, it's a really good point. LinkedIn isn't the holy grail in every country for every job. So, like, for example, I worked in construction sector, and, there are construction positions that they're not, these guys who are out on site are not on LinkedIn. And so that's okay, right? And some sectors, like some industries have their own niche job boards. Niche. I don't know if there's one in the legal profession. I know there's one in finance, but there might be some niche job boards, right? But having an optimized CV is not enough if you're going to apply for live jobs. You really have to be prepared to take extra steps. And this is where having a job search strategy is important. And when I say job search strategy, people don't have a job search strategy. Their strategy is search online, see a job, apply for the job. That is not a strategy. That is not.
That was my strategy when I was looking for a job.
That is not a strategy.
I would literally copy paste, and then sometimes I would just which firms did I apply to? And I just
I don't blame you. You're absolutely right, and I don't blame you, because this is all we know, right? The only reason I know different is because I work as a headhunter, and the headhunter has if you think about what a headhunter does, a headhunter finds jobs. Exactly what the job seeker wants to do, find jobs, All right.
Yes.
But remember what a headhunter wants to do. They want to find the job fast. Okay. So what are they doing to find the jobs fast? And they're doing a lot of different things. And some of the key things they're doing that most job seekers are not doing is they are networking their way to the jobs. Okay. Networking. They are meeting people, they are attending events, they are trying to widen their circle so jobs can come through the network, so they can hear about opportunities. Now, remember how I told you companies like to recruit. They like to recruit from their network first.
Yes.
So a recruiter, a headhunter is positioning themselves so that they can hear, so they are networked with decision makers. So they are networked with HR directors so that they can hear about these job opportunities before they are advertised.
Yes.
By the time a job is advertised, like if I ever saw a job as a recruiter that was advertised, let's say I didn't know about it, I didn't hear about it. And once I've seen it online, I'm very reluctant to work it. Very reluctant to work it because at that point I know that it's too noisy already. It's too noisy already. So we try and get jobs earlier on, closer to as them being released, closer to the source than by the time they've got advertised. And so if a job seeker starts to think like a headhunter, what does this mean? This means that you need to start networking. So there are two ways to job search. One is reactive way, which is what most people are doing. See a job, apply, wait. That I call the reactive method. You are reacting to if you're invited back. Okay. Then there's another way, and this is what the headhunters do. There's a proactive way. Okay. And the proactive way is they're predominantly, they're using LinkedIn a lot and they're networking their way to job opportunities. Okay. And there's a lot of messaging, phone work, follow-ups that take place when you are being proactive. So for example, when I coach people, I say, okay, you're going to do both. You're going to find a job looking the reactive way, but we're going to do a few extra steps. Plus, you're going to start doing all these other things. You're going to have a job search strategy where you're going to try and network your way to hear about jobs. Okay. The downside of networking your way is we don't know how long it will take. Okay. Yes. The plus side is you lose a lot of the competition and you can be a little bit more tailored with looking for things that you want, rather than just making yourself fit what's available.
Yes.
Right. So it's a combination, a hybrid approach that is needed for job seekers. This proactive way, I'm not going to lie, it takes energy and discipline. Okay. Yes. But the fruits of doing that, and this is why you hear a lot of people saying, they found their job through their ex, so-and-so referred me to this, or so-and-so mentioned the job to me. It's bypassing all of this online optimizing, all the competing, because, their friend told them about it, or their old boss called them. This is how the networking approach works. And if we go by the research, let's say 70% to be conservative, if 70% of jobs are not advertised, then why are we all trying to
count in that section?
Why are we all competing for the 30%?
Wow.
Jobs? We should compete for the 30%, but we should position ourselves to
simultaneously
access the 70%. And so time and time again, usually when I say this and I show people the picture of, that picture of the iceberg where you can only see the tip and the rest is underwater. That's the job market. That's the job market. So I suppose for people that are listening, don't despair. If what you see out there live and you can't find something, or you've applied and you haven't heard back, it is not your fault. The job market is that online search method is set up really to reward one person. And I read somewhere that when you look at the conversions of, how many people apply for one job, like you've got better chances of winning a lottery sometimes. It's like, I don't want to sound like don't do it. You do apply. But what I would do, here's what I do. So this is a practical tip that you could hopefully do straight away, right? If I was looking for a job today and I saw a job on LinkedIn or wherever I saw a job, this is what I do. I would read the job description. I would highlight the keywords. All right. I'd research the job. I'd research what LinkedIn's telling me, the 10 skills. I would optimize my LinkedIn profile. I would make sure my CV is optimized with those keywords peppered throughout. And then I would respect the process. So whatever the job description says in terms of how to apply, I would apply. And then these are the extra things I would do. This is where most job seekers stop there. Now what I would do, I'd go back into LinkedIn, I'd find the decision maker for the job. So if it's a marketing job, I'd find the marketing director's name. And I won't just find one contact, I'll try and find minimum two, the HR director and the decision maker. I would then in-mail them on LinkedIn itself. I would in-mail them, okay? And there are I won't go, we won't have time to go into this, but there are ways to message people in a way that is not
desperate.
spamming them. Yeah, not spamming them. Okay. But I would try, my objective would be to try and open dialogue with the key people, with the decision makers, to get on their radar. So I would try and get on their radar, and I would try and get on their radar by standing out. Often my approach is to add value first. So I would offer something, I would share some intel, know-how, articles, events, research that I've come across. I would try and get on their radar. If they don't respond to me on LinkedIn, I would get their email address. And yes, you can get their email address. There are tools, their public email address, okay, their work. You can even ring up their company.
I wasn't thinking
don't be doing illegal things. Yeah,
no stalking.
You can usually, as headhunters, we would ring up an office and ask someone's email address, okay, so their work email address. So I would be trying to, then I would follow up on an email. I would potentially even call them. My rule to self, and when I had my team, is the quicker we can get them on a phone call, the better. So we wouldn't want to be in LinkedIn messaging and email messaging too long. The quicker we can get them on a phone call, the better. So I would be following up and doing these different touch points to get on the radar of the decision maker. And that is how I would find a job today. Wow. And so that's what I'm talking about, taking extra steps. So if there's someone listening to this who's looking for a job, then that would be my encouragement. Do a few extra steps that your competition aren't going to do.
Yeah. And just on that point, Dee, I remember, being in that place where I'm spamming law firms with CVs and then when people, I've been there, and then people call and say, Sarah-Mae would like to invite you for an interview. I'm like, which law firm are you again? I can't remember. I have to create an Excel spreadsheet. But I mean, it's always a fine line between like calling up and looking desperate. So what would your advice be? Like, how many times is too many times with calling and
Yes, and emailing, and let's call it touch points. So this is a great question. Okay, so I'll answer it twofold. So in our recruitment agency, so remember, I'm giving you the headhunter answer. Okay, so as headhunters, we had a process in place that meant that we would follow up with someone 6 times before we dropped off. Okay.
Oh, wow.
But for a job seeker, I would say about 2 to 3 times.
Okay.
For me, because I'm quite proactive, and if I want something, I will do whatever I can to go towards it. Okay. So I would probably say 3 times for me. Now, I will add something to this. And by the way, this question is a really smart question, and it comes up all the time that you've just asked. Often what I find is in job seekers' way is not the market, is not the amount of opportunities, is none of that. Is not hot jobs versus jobs that are going out, none of that. Often what's in the way is actually the job seeker themselves. It's the stories that they've told themselves that they now believe, right? So it's this confidence of, I don't want to appear like this, so I won't do it. I don't want to come across like that, so I won't do it. And so when you start to have that narrative in your brain, you pull back and you don't do it. Because that's what you believe now, right?
Yes.
So my point is here, and headhunters don't think like that. Actually, that's wrong. Usually there are headhunters that think like that, but when they go up against headhunters who don't think like that, they'll lose. Okay, because the proactive headhunter will find the job faster.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for a job, okay, or let's say you spot a job in the market, the company has a pain point. they are looking for talent. All
Yes.
right. They have a pain point. By you calling them or responding to them or following up, you are addressing their pain point. You are trying to fix that problem and you're offering yourself as the solution. There is no shame in that. Yeah, there is no shame in that. If you can do it in a way that has finesse or a bit of elegance in your messaging, okay? And this is where I said, I touched on it before. I try and come from a position of giving value first. I try that, okay? So I don't try and make my asks, or if I do ask, I make tiny micro requests, too big, someone cold who doesn't know me straight off the bat. Okay, I might have had one, I might start, ask them about something or offer to show my CV in the second or third message. My objective is to open dialogue. And so this is where we start getting into how to message in a way that's elegant and that isn't spamming. But in the end, I actually don't care. You've got a problem and you're trying to fill that job. I think I can do the job. I'm trying to get on your radar. That is why I'm calling you. What's the worst thing that can happen? They don't call you back. Well, most people are sat there sending their CVs everywhere and not being called back. All I'm trying to do is leapfrog and give myself the best chance. So this does take a bit of self-talk to arrive at a place that you're okay with following somebody up. But this, I won't ignore that you've raised it, because this comes up all the time, that we have our own discomfort levels, and then we buy into that. And so it holds us back from taking action. If your own story in your head is holding you back from taking action, then I suppose you have to ask yourself, how is that working for you? Wow. And if you're in a position for looking for a job, if it was me, if it's me and, I've got 2 kids, if I've got to put a roof over my head and food on the table, then I'm following up.
Yes.
I'm following up. And the worst you can say to me is no. And it's better you tell me no faster so I can move on and look for more jobs. Simple.
So on that point, because I've also been through experiences where people kind of HR departments will contact me and then call me almost asking me questions about my CV. And it's from an amazing company that I really want to work for. So I give them the time of day, answer their questions, and they take 2 months to reply back to me. Do I give them up completely and just not think of them as an option? How do I deal with that?
It's such a good question. You are coming out with the best questions.
That's because I lived through it.
These are such good questions because this is the reality of it, right? And we had the same, sometimes we would send CVs to our clients and then you don't hear back. And by the time, I had this example actually, and I sent the CV and I think, we're chasing, could you give us some feedback? Because we're getting chased as well, right? By the job seeker.
Yes.
And the HR are just not responsive because they're also chasing the line manager who's not responsive, right? So it happens. The communication can break down. There's so many places for it to break down, and it does break down. And anyway, I remember it was about 6 weeks after that they finally got back and said, we'd like to invite this person in for an interview. And I was like, they've gone. They've got another job. They're off the market. They're working with your competitor. Go figure. You had the CV all this time and you've lost out to your competitor. What a shame, because that was that talent is that particular skill is quite not in abundance. And so their own process actually was working against them with snapping up talent. All right. So that was I suppose the lesson in that. Now, when you, as a job seeker, from a job seeker's perspective, if I've applied to a company, I really like them, my rule to self would be, I would organize my folders on my computer. I'd have an Excel sheet. Okay. I would know, okay, here's the job link. I'd put that in and I'd put exactly when I applied. But remember the extra steps. I would follow up. So I would have at least two more decision maker names, and I would approach both on LinkedIn first. And then I would follow up either phone call or an email. So on my spreadsheet, I will be tracking all my follow-ups, okay? And the timeline. There will come a point when you naturally feel that you've taken it as far as you can and either still not heard back or you're not getting the response. I would say it's, if they haven't told you no, then it's you don't know, right? I wouldn't get hung up on it. I'd move on to the next company.
The next thing.
So in recruitment, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. So I would just be building out, like, I'm looking for more contacts. And, when we use the networking approach, by the way, so remember the difference: proactive approach, reactive approach, proactive approach. Reactive approach is applying for live jobs that you can see and waiting. Proactive approach is going to try and find the hidden job market. Okay, when you're looking for the hidden job market, the 70% of jobs, right? We don't know where the jobs are. We don't know who's recruiting, but what we are doing is networking. Okay, so we are looking for decision makers in our sector, and we don't know if their companies are looking. We don't really care. We're just looking for, let's just take example, marketing directors. Let's say, because I'm a qualified copywriter by background. So for example, if I was looking for a copywriter job or something like that in a marketing department, I would be looking at, okay, on LinkedIn, I'd be saying to myself, what industries am I drawn to? Okay, that's where I'll start. Okay, I'm drawn to, I don't know, the fashion industry and the blockchain industry or finance industry. Okay, I'd make a list of maybe like 2 or 3 industries that I like. Within those industries, I'd use LinkedIn to find companies, and I would say, right, let me see what companies are in Singapore in blockchain, for example. Okay, here's my list on LinkedIn, 100 companies. Okay, who is the head of marketing at all of these companies? I'd use LinkedIn. I'd get all that data. This is where we're doing this. This technique is called mapping. So I would be mapping leads. So I would the objective is to find the decision maker, whether it's the director or marketing director. Once I've got their names, which is all transparent on LinkedIn, I would now message them. Message them with the objective of opening dialogue, not asking for a job straight away, because I'm trying to access the hidden job market, but I'm contacting them cold. So I would be trying to open up a dialogue in whatever way. Even a company, oh, hi, yeah, I noticed that you operate in blockchain, or I'm also really interested in that sector. I've got marketing background. How's the market right now? What do you think of the market? Oh, here's a data report I found. Have you read this? I thought this might add value to you. I'm just sending this to people in my network. Something to open the dialogue.
Yes.
So this strategy is useful not only to find a job, but whether you're in business development, if you ever become an entrepreneur and launch your business, and you need this skill set of networking will serve you for life. Actually.
Absolutely. Yes. Dee, I'm conscious of the fact that we have 6 minutes, and probably lots of people want to ask you questions. So panelists, please type in your questions for Dee. And she'll answer them here. So while you're typing questions, panelists, Dee, I want to ask you, why have you trademarked which one was it? Not Futurist, but...
So I haven't trademarked it, but the body that awards it, the body that awards the Futurist and long-term analyst, it's their trademark. So whoever's become accredited by them can use the whole shebang, basically. It's like a fancy title, really. But all it means, I know what is a futurist? All it means is that technically, the easiest way to understand it is a futurist will look at historical data points combined with like anecdotal evidence to assert a future narrative on where they think the world or sectors are going. So for me, I'm very interested in the future of the workspace. And so that's what I look at. I tend to look at data and the job market, and where all these terms of future-proofing yourself and those kind of what career paths are, where things are heading. I tend to use it here, and then futurists say, okay, this is what we can see, that this is what happened, this is where we're at, and this is what we think is going to happen. So that's essentially it.
Wow, what it means. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so anyone please type into the chat. And people, how can they reach out to you, Dee?
Yeah, good. So I'm on LinkedIn, Dee Kanduja. So I'm very happy to connect with people there. That's probably the best place, I think, to find me. I mean, I'm on all the social channels, Instagram and Facebook, but with my professional hat on, I suppose
Yes.
LinkedIn is the best place.
Okay, great. I mean, I'll be sending your details to whoever's been in the webinar today. And
Yes.
we've just got a couple of minutes. So if anyone wants to ask a question, please feel free
Yeah.
to.
And while we're there, I can put a few links in the chat box. So there's LinkedIn has a great report, and they do it country by country about jobs that are on the rise. And so, LinkedIn has a host of data available to them. So keep an eye on that. And so I think the one I've just put it in the chat box, the one that is jobs on the rise, I believe that's the 2021 report for Singapore. But if you're in another country, you can just, reel that off. The other ones I've got here is Udemy. Now, Udemy is the world's #1 marketplace for courses. So a lot of people will do courses to upskill, reskill there, and they've got some really fascinating data on which courses are in demand by companies and by individuals, so they can see what hard skills and soft skills people where the demand is. So this gives us good insights as well as to why are people taking those courses and not other courses, for example. So there is a trends report. I've popped that in the
I see
it. And the last one, which I don't know if I've got the link, but I've got the PDF, but I don't know if I can attach it. I'll share it with you, but I'll tell you what it is. People can go to Upwork. I think, is it Upwork? Let me just quickly check. Upwork, which is a marketplace for freelancers and gig economy, type consultants, etc. And they released a really good report as well about the gigs that are in demand on their platform. So what are companies and what are companies coming to them for in terms of talent? What talent are they seeking in a freelance capacity? So this could also tell you, as we move, the gig economy is just growing, like strength to strength to strength. And as particularly because we're working from home, we are now seeing the workforce change, that you don't just have to be employed by a Singapore company. You could avail yourself to a company in the UK who could hire you. You could do your job from home. So we've got to start thinking a lot bigger now. Things have changed. So you could position yourself differently. And that report, I'm just trying to find it here. I don't think I can add it.
Oh, good.
Upwork.
I can. Yeah, I've just uploaded upwork.com.
Yeah, it's Upwork, the 2020 Future Workforce Report is what it's called.
Okay.
And then another report that you can check out again on your own is Manpower. It's an agency, I think one of the top agencies, global agencies. They also release quarterly reports on employment outlooks. And so these are some really good reports that are out there that I suggest we all keep reading so we can keep our finger on the pulse of jobs and the career market. Yeah.
So is it manpower.com?
It's it should be manpower.com, and the report name, I've got it as PDF, which I can share with you after. I don't know if you're gonna.
Yeah, and I can just email everyone after.
Load it. Yeah. So it's Manpower Employment Survey. And they do it country specific. So you can actually get the one for Singapore.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Employment survey.
Yeah, Manpower Employment Survey. So they do that quarterly. So you can see that. So these are just some really good resources. And remember the Singapore government one as well.
Oh, yes. Wow, Dee, this has been so fantastic. Well, one question. Some jobs don't advertise the salary. When is an appropriate time to bring it up?
What a great question. Definitely not. Like the most appropriate place to discuss anything salary related would be in an interview situation. It's really it could be dangerous to discuss it before because you don't know if you're pricing yourself in or out.
Yes.
Right. And so often, like, when I would send CVs to my clients, I would do one of two things. Either I would leave it off, or if they wanted to know, if they insisted to know the salary, then I would always give them because what happens is when people are looking for a job, sometimes people add on like 5%, 10%, as in this is what I'm looking for. Yes. But it's not down to you to say at this point what you're looking for. So the best thing to do is say, this is what I'm on as a fact. And I can, to prove it if you had to with your pay slips. And everybody knows, or in a buoyant market, at least you would get some uplift. But the issue if you go in with already putting the inflation on top of it is that you could price out. So I would always go with the facts and present the facts, like, this is my candidate, this is what they're on factually. They are looking for an increase, and the increase, what that is a discussion to be had later during interview. And it's smarter to do that, because when you're in an interview, you have more of an opportunity to impress them, to sell yourself. You have more in your favor to convince them and influence them in there, rather than before when they don't know you. So it's about, if this was a negotiation, like for me, it's better people meet me and I can be myself, and they can buy into me, and then I can show my worth, show my value, and then have the conversation about money. That puts me in a much stronger negotiating position.
Wow, so good. Thank you, Dee. I think we're going to have to round up because we've hit the 1 p.m. mark. So thank you so much. You're so knowledgeable, and I think your talk would really encourage a lot of people, because a lot of us don't have strategies. We just kind of go into this feeling disheartened and discouraged. So I think it's been very helpful for some people. So I'll be sure to share your handles with everyone on my socials, and hope to have you back on the lunch hour.
I would love to. I'm happy to help anybody. So just message me on LinkedIn if I can help. I totally will. So thanks for having me.
No worries. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a lovely day.
All right.
See ya.